This podcast is part of the Midwest Podcast Network. Find out more about our other shows and how to support our network at MidwestPodcastNetwork.com. Welcome to Gone to Texas, a podcast about AMC's Preacher. My name is Alex, and I have not read any of Ennis and Dylan's Preacher.
Welcome to Gone to Texas, a podcast about AMC's Preacher. I am Nick, and I have read all of Ennis and Dylan's Preacher.
And I am Lance, and I have read all of Ennis and Dylan's Preacher.
Today we will be discussing Season 2, Episode 9 of the AMC series titled Puzzle Piece. While we will not be spoiling any of the comic, and by extension any future plotlines of the show, we will be discussing the details of the series through Season 2, Episode 9, so please pause this and go catch up before you listen to the rest of the episode. You can find more episodes of our podcast at g2tpodcast.com. We're also G2T Podcast on Twitter, and you can send feedback to g2tpodcast@gmail.com. That's the letter G, number 2, letter T, podcast.com, or at gmail.com, to tell us what you think of our podcast and share your thoughts on AMC's Preacher so we can read them on our show. Send us corrections, observations, or anything regarding Preacher or our podcast, much like several of these people did. First up, we have friend of the network, David Steele, tweeted at us saying that the Zagnut in the last episode reminded him of Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
And he sent us a screenshot of Beetlejuice's hand coming up from the ground holding the Zagnut, a large Zagnut, which is awesome. Thank you, David. I've seen Beetlejuice several times, and I still had no idea what a Zagnut was, so I don't know.
Oh, you probably thought it was made up or something.
Yeah, I probably thought it was made, or it was like...
Sounds like a fake name.
It came out several years before I was born, so I guess it was kind of like a... Is that true? It was in the 80s at some point, right?
Yeah.
Beetlejuice?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 86, 87.
Pre-Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you, David, for writing in. We got a new listener, Corey, who wrote in. He had a good question that actually kind of gets answered in the way that I answered it by a later feedback, but... Corey said, where do all the bodies go? I didn't count, but I'm guessing there are at least 24 dead angel bodies on Earth. Do they disappear after a day? Do they become compost? ? I don't think they disappear because we see Cassidy dealing with them sometimes in the first season. But I had the same question about like the whole Saint shooting up the apartment complex. Like, I feel like in the real world, which clearly the Preacher TV show is not the real world, but
let's hope not.
The people should be like, I feel like people would have left that apartment complex, and like the police would have been like, "What are you guys doing here? Why didn't you get killed, but everybody else on this floor got killed?" To like Jesse and them, and then in my brain, much as Mike says, like, if the police were around, it's not like Jesse wouldn't be able to just tell them to go away, as we see him use them like an instrument for the entirety of this episode, pretty much. So I think it's an interesting question, and I think it's interesting that the show never chooses to kind of deal with the Saints' aftermath, I guess, or even in the case of Sundowner, the episode where all like the angels die hundreds of times and trying to kill the seraphim and that kind of thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I need it answered, but I think it's kind of a weird lingering logistics question. Like, I feel like at some point we could have a shot where there's just the people coming up to clean up after the Saint, and it's just kind of like another weird
right.
Another weird instance where there's a shitload of dead people. So
yeah, you could almost have like
that's a John Wick thing, right? I think it's in John Wick.
Yeah.
You could almost have a spin-off season of just one detective following these crime sprees and not being able to figure it out. Yeah, I would chalk it up to either. I always just kind of assumed that it was because the apartment and the area are so grimy and dingy that nobody cares. They're like, oh, another meth head and his wife shot each other to death. Although with 5 apartments in succession, it could also be Grail. I mean, it might be Grail just cleaning it up.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they have their eye on Jesse.
They have their ability to insert themselves into the situation pretty easily.
As we've heard even in this episode, like, it's the most powerful organization in the world.
Yeah.
And so they are everywhere and they can do anything.
Yep. Yeah,
it's a
that's true.
Good point, because maybe when Featherstone and Hoover took occupation, they occupied that room.
Yeah.
Maybe they just told the police not to come there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah,
it's going to be their easy way to explain anything in the show. Grail.
and that's the thing.
Prep
Is that
time.
anything that like Jesse having the word kind of allows them to do whatever they want.
That's true.
But the fact that they don't, like, I guess it makes sense that they don't bother to answer it, but I feel like it kind of lingers a little bit. But anyway.
I see what you're saying. It's never something that came up in my mind, though. I was kind of like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, that's fair.
I get it. As soon as it's one of those things where as soon as somebody points it out, you'll be like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be that guy who's like, in Lord of the Rings, we never saw them stopping to pee.
Yeah.
When do they go to when do they sleep? You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
it's just.
There's a famous commentary, Ben Affleck on the Armageddon commentary, where he's like,
What?
he's talking to Michael Bay, and he's saying to Michael Bay, he's like, wouldn't it be easier to train astronauts how to be oil drillers rather than oil drillers how to be astronauts?
Yeah.
And then Michael Bay just goes, shut up, man. Are you serious? Are you going to ask me this now?
Ben, that's not what the movie's about.
Yeah.
Are you paying attention or what?
Right.
That's actually awesome.
That's pretty good. Thank you, Corey, for writing in. We're glad to have you along.
Yeah.
A few things from Mike. He wanted to let us know that he felt that Nick was spot on about Genesis in terms of interpreting Mike's feelings on Genesis driving the story in the books, but being just a plot device in the show. So thumbs up to Nick and Lance for
thanks.
piecing those together.
Yep.
In the comics, the purpose of hell used to be rehab, but it was eventually perverted, which I think is interesting because he kind of... We talked about that a little bit.
I was thinking about that because there's one specific chapter or one specific issue of the book where they really speak heavily about hell and the origin of Genesis, kind of. And I was wondering after we recorded last week if they had said anything in there about, because there's some stuff involving the saint and involving hell and involving, like I said, the Genesis of Genesis. That I thought maybe some of that was peppered in there, and that's probably what he's referring to.
Yeah. And then he also said that he thinks the superintendent's voice modulation may just be a giveaway / some kind of way to show that she's a demon. Like an easier, cheaper way of portraying a demon rather than like doing some crazy makeup or graphical thing. Yeah. But I don't know.
It's the way it shifts suddenly that makes me feel like as viewers in 2017, we're supposed to think that that's
more
like,
to it.
That's a technological boo-boo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a demon, it'd be hilarious to see like this tough-looking Asian lady and she just has this deep hell voice the entire time. Like that would be funny. I'd be into that. But or maybe it is a demon, but the means that keep them disguised are technological in nature.
Yeah.
It feels like something's breaking down.
Yeah.
Or is on the fritz.
Yeah. And then I touched on the police thing, as I said earlier. And then he said, personally, though, I think Cassidy. He did not think that Cassidy would bite Denis.
I didn't either.
So
yeah,
we will reckon with that later.
Makes sense now, though. Why he did it.
You know what? And I answered it. I answered my own. I argued myself very well, incidentally, at the end of our last episode when you were saying that you thought he probably would, and I said it would be the irresponsible thing to do. And as I said that out loud, I was like,
oh, yeah.
I was like, you know what? Then he probably will do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So thank you, Mike, for writing in. Bruce wrote in a couple thoughts, and I wanted to apologize. I think I messed up his podcast name. Oh. Because his Twitter handle is Script Archaeology, I believe. Uh-huh. And the actual podcast is Screenplay Archaeology.
Oh, I think he mentioned that because it kept on getting cut off. Like it's too many characters.
Yes.
So yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I apologize to Bruce. Please check out his podcast about the previous Preacher adaptation attempts. But he said he did bring up one thing. He said, I think that the maternity ward was way too bright for Cassie to be standing around in it like that, which is a good catch there. A little continuity thing.
Well, in the books, I think he always says like, yeah, it hurts a little bit. I think him being indirect sunlight. Indirect sunlight. I think he says like, yeah, it hurts a little bit.
And he was wearing that full leather jacket with like a turtleneck kind of thing, or like a some kind of what is that called? Ascot or something.
Oh yeah.
So maybe he was protected enough. He said Hoover was great. Can't wait to see him meet Herr Starr and maybe offer him some booberry, which I agree that will probably be fantastic. But one of the this is a good catch that I did not catch, and I wish I did. He said, I think Seamus was the same person Cassidy called way back in the pilot when he first met Jesse in the bar. I noticed the voice on the other end had an Irish accent when I rewatched the first season right before the second began. So I went back and found that scene in the pilot. Cassidy calls a man to let him know that he was found by vampire hunters. He's not sure how they keep finding him. The man on the other end of the phone tells him that he'll look into it and that Cassidy should stay low. And then Cassidy goes to say, I need you to wire me. And then the man hangs up. So it's probably the Seamus that we met last episode, for sure.
Man.
So awesome catch to Bruce's credit. That was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then finally, Joseph wrote in. He said, this was probably my least favorite episode of the series, talking about Puzzle Piece, the current one. He said, it felt like most of the episode was retreading old story beats and the pacing was weird. Joseph's last point, he said, the most interesting part of the episode for me was Cassidy cautioning Denis on lines he shouldn't cross. It's interesting to get a hint that as manipulative, undisciplined, and unreliable as Cassidy can be, he is apparently holding himself back from being something worse, which I think is a pretty good point.
From going full vampire?
Yeah, from being the kind of vampire that literally preys on humans. Like Cassidy, we've never even... Have we seen Cassidy feed on a human? Do you guys remember?
Yeah, he ate what's his name in season 1? Miles.
To recover, yeah. The mayor.
Yeah.
Do you mean stalk and
Hunter? Yeah, and to hunt humans. And so he doesn't really hunt humans. He did fully recover on Miles at the behest of Emily, right? Her kind of request there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, poor Miles in his khakis.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So. God, that's still one of my favorite moments of the show is watching him stare at those 3 sets of khakis.
Identical khakis.
It was amazing.
Yeah. So, Cassidy seems to have a code, and it's interesting. We haven't had... Joseph goes on to say, we didn't get that logical next step of here's the full conversation of exposition of this is Cassidy's code that he lives by. So I wonder if we'll ever get that, or if we're just going to get pieces of it, or how that's going to go, but...
I wonder if I may float a theory here. It seems like Seamus... There seems to be a sort of a band of vampires out there. There's a society of them. And we were saying when he calls to ask him about Denis, he asks him the questions about his temperament and that. And it does seem like, to kind of reiterate something I said last week, that they want to keep their numbers to a manageable level and to make sure that there's nobody there that could go rogue, either to risk exposing them, or to give them a bad name.
Yeah,
maybe they have an uneasy truce with the Catholic Church or something. We don't really know. And I wonder if, based on was it Bruce who pointed out the pilot conversation with probably Seamus? I wonder if they're the ones sicking vampire hunters on Cassidy, because he's I have this weird feeling that Cassidy is an accident. He's an accidental vampire, but they keep him around for some reason. This isn't stemming from anything from the book either. There aren't really other vampires in the book.
Well, there is. There in a special. There is.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And there's a small arc that kind of has to do with it, but there really aren't. There's not this. There's never a phone call with another vampire, unless there is in the special.
No, not really.
Okay, I haven't read the special, so Lance has got me there.
So you're seeing maybe Seamus is, because Cassidy's the outcast. Seamus is directing them his way as to either we're either going to take out vampire hunters or we're going to take out Cassidy.
I'm just kind of getting the weird vibe that he's kind of an outcast, and he's sort of the runt of the litter. And I feel like maybe he was turned by another vampire who wasn't supposed to turn him, someone who broke out of the code. I'm using air quotes here. And so they're well, he's already around. We don't want to kill him, but we don't have to keep him around. You know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like there's more to it than, especially with the way that it's kind of shady. He's calling him for money. It's almost like a parental kind of thing. Yeah. So it could be, like you said, the person who turned him, but maybe it's more of a guardian type role, somebody who has to deal with him but would rather not. Yeah. Which sounds awful in the role of where that happens with real people, so I apologize. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. There's something more to that I have this funny feeling about that Cassidy's kind of like
he's like a rogue vampire,
yeah, but maybe not rogue, because I feel like that, like he's doing it intentionally. Like he was almost just kicked out, and like you just stay out there and you follow these like 5 core tenets, and we won't kill you. But maybe like somehow if he's calling him saying, I don't know how they keep finding me, it feels like maybe they're being directed towards him.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I'm sure we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, we're getting that's a lot of we're trying to extrapolate from 2 very small data points on the line. So I think hopefully we get more in the future and can kind of
it just feels,
if it is even going to be that big of a thing in the show.
Right? Like, it may not be.
We've heard Seamus on the phone twice now, maybe. So
those questions are just they seem very telling.
Yeah,
they're very specific.
Yeah,
and they're really interesting.
Yeah,
so I'm excited to hear more about that.
Thank you, Joseph, for writing in very much. We appreciate it quite a bit. And everybody else as well. Thank you very much. On to the recap of this episode. This is episode 209, Puzzle Piece. In the teaser, the Grail Grunts prepare an identical office for Hair Star, potentially in New Orleans. I thought it was interesting that it looks exactly the same from the interior as the other one from last week. Not just because they only used like a green screen in the background, but that's funny. Jesse flashes back to his father's murder as we hear the sound cue mentioned in past episodes of our podcasts, being the fish tank at Mike's or the family business line or the Angelville poster. The one that Nick has said they're beating us over the head with at this point.
Yeah.
Jesse takes to YouTube to look into God sightings when Cassidy comes in to heat up some blood, explaining that Denis is getting better and will make it. And he snottily kind of mentions that he didn't need Jesse after all. Tulip comes home from a long night at the Hurt Locker after getting shot 3 times with a .44. Cassidy tries to tell her to give it a rest, but Jesse snaps at him. And then Tulip then snaps at Jesse when he says that she needs sleep. So he approaches her and uses the word to put her to sleep. And finally, Featherstone and Hoover show the footage of that to Hair Star, and he is unimpressed, so he orders them to kill everyone involved. Yeah, fun teaser. A lot and nothing kind of happen at the same time, but we obviously get the idea. Like, did you guys just assume as soon as Cassidy walked in and said Denis gonna get better that he had bitten him?
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. Good thing I didn't bet on it.
But what I will say, and we talked about last week how the scene on the staircase with Jesse and Tulip was really sad. Mm-hmm. This teaser was sadder to me. Oh,
yeah.
Because they are it's almost like open season between the 3 of them just being shitty to each other. And it's like I felt like they were such good buds at the end of season 1 and heading into this season, and now to see them kind of like barely tolerating each other in the same room, I'm sad. So I don't know if you guys felt the same way. Like it
you can feel it. You can definitely feel it. The distance between all of them, the way they talk to each other is very curt.
Yeah.
And so an interesting thing to point out is that Seth Rogen had mentioned that the first season didn't have any scenes with all 3 of them. And now season 2 is all scenes with all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And we're exploring that, and we're kind of breaking them apart just all in the same shot.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
That's a cool observation.
But I just like watching that. The first time I watched through that scene, I just felt like shit. I was like, God damn it. My buds they're not good anymore. They're not jiving anymore.
My buds are not good. So, I didn't really like it. That's funny. I liked the stairwell scene a lot more.
No, and I think that was a much more skillful shot, and even in terms of the placement and literally putting distance between them and having them on different planes, and like absolutely. But for some reason, this one hit me harder, like them being openly curt and cutting and all of that to each other. Like I feel like we're starting to come to a head.
What's weird, I would agree if they stayed that way, but they're like all good for the rest of the episode. It's weird. Like they have this moment of like it was pretty nasty, and I think I didn't like it. Right off the bat, I was kind of like, I don't like this because it was something about the writing, and it just didn't really jive as much for me. I thought it was a little too I don't want to say on the nose, but
ham-fisted.
Yeah, maybe. So this seems to be a thing that's happening in season 2 for me a little bit. Sometimes the interactions between Tulip and Jesse that are negative, I just feel like they aren't written well. They're both amazing actors, and in their scenes where they're amicable with each other, they're great, and in the scenes where they have conflict with Cassidy, they're great. But against each other, for some reason, a lot of it doesn't work for me, and I don't know why. I think it's because, maybe because Jesse just flip-flops so hard. Sometimes he's really angry and irritated with her, and then in some scenes, he's not at all. He doesn't react. He just sits there, and I feel like it's just inconsistent writing on the part of Jesse. He's playing every scene specifically how that scene is written, rather than
trying to keep it cohesive throughout.
Right, and I don't want to keep saying this over and over, but I probably will, so strap yourself in. But Jesse in the book, you always know how he's going to react.
Yeah.
And that's part of the fun. That's part of what makes you feel like you know that character and you're along for the ride with him. And in this show, I never know how he's going to react to anything, hardly. Some big swinging things, I'm like, okay, here it comes. Or I know what he's going to do, but seriously, it's a scene-by-scene basis with Tulip especially. I'm like, I don't know if he's going to be irritated with her or if he's going to be understanding or if he's going to show that he loves her and listen and try to help. It's just that the level of inconsistency there is starting to grate on me a little bit. And even when Cassidy snipes at him like he did, I was like, you know what, Jesse's just going to take the shot because he deserves it. And he's probably going to either take it because he knows he deserves it or because he doesn't care. And he's like, well, whatever. I made the right choice. And I think something is still going to go really south with Denis. And Cassidy's going to be angry at Jesse to be like, if you had just helped him or... Cassidy's going to say, I had to turn him because you made me do it, is basically. Yeah. And I think that if Denis goes rogue and he becomes like this vampire menace, listening to opera full blast, just keeping up the neighbors, like any bad teenager, Cassidy's going to, Cassidy may have to put him down or somebody's going to have to, and he's going to get mad at Jesse and it's your fault kind of thing. So I understand the dynamic between Cassidy and Jesse. It makes more sense, and I can chart it out. Yeah. But his conversations with the Tulip are just like this wave going back and forth. Yeah, and I can never get a beat on it.
It's very it's like he acknowledges there's a problem. He knows there's something wrong, but he's not willing to put in any effort to really figure it out.
Yeah.
Even judging by their the conversation that they have later in the episode, he's not. He's still so focused on his shit that he's not able to deal with it. He's just telling her to deal with it herself, or why don't you just sleep? That's what you need sleep. And he's not. We're showing no signs of him recognizing the issue.
And I think that if it was consistently that way throughout the episode, I'd be okay with it. But in that scene, he does genuinely seem to be worried about her.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe with just a little bit more direction, maybe I don't know if Jesse's just kind of placating her, and if he's like, all right, I'm just going to use the word to get this problem off my plate because I need to focus on other stuff. Because later he's all peppy again when he's got the walkie-talkie and he's got the cleaning crew and he says good morning to her and he's all he's all chipper again because he's back on the mission. But something about that scene, just threw it for me. But I did love that he used the word on her, and you see Cassidy look at him
oh yeah,
yeah,
the fuck,
yeah. Well, and here's another thing that I was going to bring up. Mike wrote a thing. He wrote in one of his loquacious emails. He said, "Quick thoughts. Jesse is so much less effective in the show, and his use of the word is like a sledgehammer as opposed to the scalpel it should be."
I'm so glad you brought that up because I did read that in his email, and I wanted to talk about it.
And that is. It feels like we had Tulip very clearly in the first episode of this season be like, don't you, or even I think it was in the finale of last season. Yeah. She's like, never do that to me again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's done it twice now to her.
I think
in this season,
it's been twice this season.
This season, yeah.
Yeah, in this season.
Yeah.
So it's and there hasn't really been that much consequence to him doing it either. Tulip gets pissed about it.
She keeps getting irritated.
Real upset. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of I don't know. When it was with Victor and telling her to go away because of Victor, obviously when the situation diffused, I think she was just relieved that nobody ended up dead and that she probably got the outcome she wanted in terms of divorce papers. But in this case, him very much being like, it felt like that conversation for them should have been a much bigger blow up than it was. Like this should actually come to a head. I don't think it has yet. Like we see Tulip later on in this episode being something is off. Yeah. She's nuts. She's sleep deprived, even though she had a good night's sleep. Like there's something going wrong there still. And Jesse still doesn't deal with it. And it just feels very against several of the scenes that we see, but not all of them, as Nick is saying. So I think that's... But anyway, to get to Mike's point about the sledgehammer versus the scalpel, I want you guys to maybe comment on that, because obviously I don't know what using Genesis as a scalpel would really be.
What I think he may be referring to is that when Jesse uses Genesis in the comic, then it's like you wouldn't expect it to be like an order, but it is. And like if I could compare it to one that was in the show, when he says like get lost to somebody, you're like, what does that mean, get lost? You know, like, but here he's just like, you work for me. And so that's very literal. And so when he says something in the comic, it doesn't sound literal, but then people literally do what he says.
Okay.
The one I can think of is in the show that immediately sprung to mind was in the first episode of this season when he tells the guy to whistle or to sing. What does he sing? Yellow Rose of Texas?
Yeah.
And the guy doesn't stop until he gets shot, right? Like he just keeps going. And that's exactly what would happen. Like I think you would... When he uses the word, it's like Lance says, it's very literal, and whatever he tells you to do, I think will be carried out until you can either no longer do it or until you're done with whatever it is. So it's almost, I can't even make up an example. All I can think of are specific ones that I don't want to say.
Like I guess what I'm maybe sussing out from what you guys are saying is that it feels like in this case that the word is becoming a way for the writers to deal with things that they don't want to deal with, as opposed to being like something that Jesse is employing. Like maybe you should comment on the use of like Jesse's employment of the police force in this episode. Like how does that track in the sledgehammer versus scalpel?
I think he would do that. I mean, I don't think he would necessarily want to put like innocent people in some serious harm's way.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger thing that stands out for me is Jesse in the comic would never use the word on Tulip if she asked him not to, unless in the most extreme of circumstances.
Yeah.
Like unless he is like so sure what he's doing is like the right thing, even if it's not, you know what I mean? And there's a specific instance where he uses it on Cassidy in the book. And he doesn't use it haphazardly or for like little stuff. And like the sleep one, I would get it if it was just a better done scene where like he sees she's in pain and he thinks it's the right thing to do. Like he just does it to like get it off his plate.
Yeah.
And I think that although he is worried about her, he's just not like, he's not thinking through his decision enough. And it's just like, sleep, that'll do it.
Yeah.
Rather than be more specific, like,
because it's maybe all he can handle.
And sleep and don't dream about the Saint of Killers, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think on purpose later in the episode when he's like, it's all that I could have done. Like it was the only option that I had.
Right.
It rings very hollow.
Right.
Even in his performance. And I think that's on purpose. So I think there's got to be a reckoning of some sort coming for all of that. But
yeah.
We'll see when that happens. So
there should be, because the word is it's a terrifying thing to be on the receiving end of, I'm sure, and even to be in the company of.
Yeah.
And and they must really, really have a lot more faith in TV Jesse than I do, because Tulip and Cassidy both seem to be okay with hanging around this guy all the time who is using this at a whim, because in the book he doesn't really do it unless somebody really has it coming or it's going to help him with something important. And I think that it's one of those things. all I can think of is like you compare it to is like X-Men, like Professor Xavier, and you think about like how much power that is and how terrifying that is to not. I mean, he could literally make Tulip. He could make her forget the whole encounter with the Santa killers, but then you're tampering with someone's mind and their memory, and that's scary and also a slippery slope, you know?
Yeah.
He can do anything. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole X-Men comic arc about how Professor Xavier shoveled all this history out of everyone's minds, and it's so awesome. It's an awesome story, but it basically turns him into a villain. Yeah, which is really sad. If you're an X-Men fan, you're like, oh no, Chuck, what you done?
Yeah, there's a good arc in even in Buffy about that with Willow doing some witchcraft that.
Yeah, it's scary stuff,
and people's minds.
It's awesome subject matter, but I feel like it needs to be explored a little bit. At least that these characters need to have a conversation about it. Like they need to sit down.
And if by like the end of this, like I don't feel like we've been heading there. Maybe we have, and maybe by the end of the season, I'll feel okay about it. But like if this season was a reckoning for Jesse in terms of like him learning that he needs to be careful with what he's doing, maybe that'll be okay in the end. But I don't see that those pieces are coming together yet. It just seems like he's very haphazardly. Like, I guess maybe that was even supposed to be Eugene. Like,
that's true. Yeah, they go to hell. He didn't know that was going to happen.
He felt like he feels bad about it, but it's not like it didn't teach him to not be a dick with it, you know?
Yeah, and you in finding and rescuing Eugene is not in the top 10 of his to-do list right now, where it should probably be number 1.
Yeah.
Besides Fight God, so it's number 2.
All right.
But great observation, the sledgehammer versus scalpel. I mean, that's just even a poetic way of putting it.
Yeah.
Because, good stuff.
Yeah.
And and I would agree with like why is Tulip sticking around? Why is even Cassidy sticking around? Jesse's being crappy to them.
Yeah.
I might say that Tulip and him have a thing going on where they say until the end of the world.
Yeah.
But then Cassidy and him, they have a little more bond in the comic because of the things they do for each other.
Yeah.
Here they have just a friendship bond, I'd say. That's just like we're mates, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cass just has no place else to go at this point. I mean, he's done it all. You know, like what's going to be better than hanging out with a crazy preacher looking for God who can tell people to do like, I'm sure that it's just out of interest, but it is weird that nobody has bothered to like kind of talk about it.
Yeah.
Actually, the sledgehammer scalpel thing reminds me of, I know this is an old saying and I've heard it before, but I was just reading something today that said it, to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
And I think it perfectly sums up the way Jesse
totally
is using the word.
Totally.
Nice. Yeah.
Anything else in the teaser?
Yeah, it was something else you said.
But we're half an hour in.
I don't...
Featherstone and Hoover showing the footage to Harry Starr.
Oh no, the thing about the office. So is that what was happening? They recreated his office to the exact detail.
I think so. Like I think that was his New Orleans because obviously he goes on the date with the woman later, and she's the daughter of the mayor of Louisiana.
So he's still in Louisiana.
Governor of Louisiana.
That makes sense. I didn't get that for some reason. I thought it was like when he's out of the office, they totally shut it down and cover it with everything so nobody goes in there, and it's like...
That's what I thought too, actually. I was like, this guy's particular.
Yeah, exactly. So they have to uncover all the furniture, and like everything is precisely as he left it. But no, it makes more sense, and it's more outrageous that they would redesign it to a T.
The skyline changed in the back.
Oh, you know what? It's probably not that it's probably that it's always there. They probably have one in every city, every major city, and it just sits covered until
he needs to be there. So they come and prep it.
That makes more sense.
I
love that scene.
It was pretty good.
The slight slow motion of everything, and just a lot of these extras in this show, they must cast like dancers or something because these people all move with such fluidity and such grace in a lot of these kind of sequences that I'm always like really captivated. Like the last guy to leave that room, I was watching him walk. I was like, man, that's smooth. It just looks so choreographed. And I don't know. They must cast a lot of models or something like that. People who are very used to controlling their movements with precision. I guess that's actors, but whatever.
Huh? Depends on the actor, I guess. Yeah. No, I thought that was because I looked at it and I was like, I don't see the egg building, the one in London that spirals up. Like I was like, I don't see that back there, and I thought it was there last time we saw this office. And I was
That's
like,
a good observation.
it must be.
Yeah, they probably just have offices in every city. That would make sense, or every major city.
Which is a great way to recycle the same set.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that's a fantastic explanation for that. So that's beautiful.
That probably happens in the books too, and I'm just not remembering. They probably have a field office everywhere. But Anyway, it was a wonderful sequence. I loved that. It was one of those real beautiful cinematic preacher moments.
The Hair Star stuff continues to be
God, he is just fantastic.
All right.
Lance is just smiling.
Yeah.
Act 1, we get a Grail SWAT team prays in the back of their van for their mission to go well as they gear up, specifically wearing hearing protection to guard against the word. We see the first-person night vision perspective from all the team members as they raid Denis' apartment. They get attacked by Cassidy, but as several of them are busy with Cass, one soldier proceeds to clear the apartment, shooting Denis and attempting to shoot Tulip before he is thwarted by Jesse. Jesse rips off his hearing protection to use the word on him to force him to kill his teammates, and just as Jesse realizes he can interrogate the man, Denis pops out and sucks the blood out of him before Jesse has the time to learn anything. What did you think of the night vision sequence?
The Zero Dark 30?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if it's at the Catherine Bigelow level, but I thought it was.
It was cool. I was really kind of super bummed out that it happened this early, though.
Yeah.
The ear protection happened way too soon, I think. That's the kind of thing I was waiting. I knew was going to come, and I was kind of waiting for it to happen later.
Yeah, like I guess I could see like what I'm imagining from you saying that is maybe some interaction with Jesse where he's able to just completely control the situation. And
I think Mike kind of hinted to this, and I may be wrong, but part of the fun of Hair Star and the Grail is as omnipotent and all-powerful as they are, they're kind of bumbling and they goof things up all the time. And I kind of wanted all these guys to go into it without ear protection for it just be a bloodbath and like an utter, total, complete failure. And it was, I guess, on paper, but at least they went in smart enough to cover their ears. And I kind of didn't want them to think of that. I wanted them to be like, just get in there and shoot them. What's the big deal? Mm-hmm. But somebody had the foresight to tell them, like...
Featherstone totally was the one.
Who said, wear ear protection because he can tell you what to do. Mm-hmm. But I would have liked it so much more if they had walked in and you set up the seat, because you as the viewer, you wouldn't have thought about it. Yeah. You probably wouldn't have thought about it, but they call such attention to the ear. And it was cool in the Doom style POV of the guy running to just hear his breath, and that really racked up the tension. Yeah. But at the same time, it would have been, how awesome and hilarious it would have been if they built up this really cool sequence and it's really tense, and all of a sudden Jesse just walks in and just like shoot each other and then leaves the room and they all just blow each other away. That would have been so good.
Yeah. That would have been a good teaser if that's how the episode opened.
Exactly. Yeah.
That would have been pretty good.
Or he just tells them all jump out the window and they all just do it. And then you see Hair Star being like in his office like, were you kidding me?
Yeah. And then they have to figure it out.
Yeah, we didn't think of that.
Yeah, that would have been pretty good.
It was cool. It was cool that they called attention to it, and I understand there may not be any use in dragging it out.
I feel like it is in character for Featherstone to be that detail oriented for that. Is like that's kind of why I'm like, I get why it would have happened this way, but
definitely. But because Star kind of laughs it off and he's like, whatever, like what kind of superpower is that? Yeah. Where he says, in what world where a woman does what a man tells her to, is that a superpower? And he makes some joke about that, which is also pretty in line with Hair Star, but I feel like in the book, Featherstone might float some ideas like that by him, and he would probably just disregard him. Like, what do you know?
Yeah, you don't need that.
Exactly. Yeah. Although this Featherstone is pretty different from the Featherstone in the book, but she's for the better though. She's great. Yeah. Anyway, it was still a cool sequence, but I was a little bummed out that it happened so early. I was like, this is the first because even when the Grail comes at him in the van, he just fights him off. He just beats him up. He doesn't use the word on him.
He tells them to stop, but other than that, like he stops the van by telling them to stop. But that's the only. He doesn't use the word to have them kill each other.
I guess that may have just been another instance of sledgehammer versus scalpel, but I think it would have been hilarious to watch all these guys shoot each other to death in the kitchen.
If I heard it correctly, I think he was saying kill your friends. Like he was like, I'm gonna say it, and then he's like, oh, I shouldn't do that, and then he's like, no, I'm gonna make them kill each other.
Interesting.
I think I might have heard it twice.
All right, I didn't catch that. I'll have to go back and see if that.
Yeah, because maybe it's like, oh, this is the wrong thing to do, but you know what? I mean, these guys have
I'm
guns.
Gonna die.
Yeah.
No, I can see that. Yeah, I remember there being something, a bit of a hesitation there. Mm-hmm. That was cool. That was intense, and that's the kind of shit that does happen where they see the consequences of this sort of thing.
I think they kind of set it up too, where this guy did the guy in the SWAT, the guy who actually killed everybody, wasn't he like these are my friends or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking.
He said like the guy next to him said I love you, and then he said I love
that
you
was
back.
it.
Like that.
Yeah.
Like they have a real like brothership in this SWAT team essentially. But
right, made it all the worse when he
I like that.
when he was like crying as he was killing everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was nasty.
Yeah.
Well, the Grail dudes they're probably recruited at a young age, and they're probably supposed to be the best of the best, and they live together or whatever. Yeah, it was sad.
Yeah.
But oh well, that's Grail for you. You are just a decimal point to Hairstar.
Seeing Cass in the background fighting 5 dudes was pretty good too. Like I enjoyed that because it was like it's just a very fleeting moment where the first person looks back to kind of see him doing it. He's like, okay, I'm gonna go into this bedroom instead. But
they can handle this one guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cass. I mean, he seemed to get pretty quickly overpowered by all those dudes, and I suppose 5 highly trained men would be able to subdue you. But I was kind of expecting some vampire Hulk out strength where he's throwing guys around the apartment.
He was overpowered, but he kept them busy for the entire thing, though.
That's
so
true.
It's kind of like
because there are some moments in the book where he hulks out, and you're like, oh yeah, he's got that vampire strength. And so you're right. That's a good point. I mean, he didn't go down. They probably were wondering like, what the hell are we fighting?
Yeah.
Like, they may not have even known he was a vampire.
Why is he not dead with all the bullets?
So did he jump off the fridge like a cat or what? Where was he?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how.
Because he like comes flying down from the ceiling, and I was like, "What was he on?
Yeah,
was he just doing the?"
It must. Yeah, it would have been on top of the fridge. Yeah, because that's where like the fridge is up against the corner there, according to last episode.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I was a little surprised that they knew they were coming. Like that kind of caught me off guard too. Because as they were coming up, I was like, I know the guys are going to find their way out of the situation, but I don't know how yet.
Yeah.
And there was really no indicator as to how they knew they were coming that night, because this sort of full frontal assault has not occurred.
Well, when they open up the door, somebody's standing in the hallway. Is it Jesse? I thought it was Jesse.
In the hallway to the building?
No, like in the hallway to the back bedrooms.
Oh,
of the
yeah.
apartment.
No, that was Jesse for sure.
Because then he kind of runs off.
But Cass was already in position on the fridge.
Yeah, Cass was already in position.
Unless that's where he hangs out at night.
Yeah, maybe.
Could be.
Yeah.
He's up there looking for Oreos or something.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah.
No, it did seem like they were ready for them.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess I could be wrong.
Any other thoughts on that act? It was mostly just that assault, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was neat. I love the action in this show. It's great. My favorite still is Jesse fighting them all outside the van. That was just so
totally
well done.
Yeah.
But this was great. It made me want to go back and watch Zero Dark 30 again.
Yeah. Yeah. Act 2, Hairstar discusses his disenchantment with a young woman on a date. The woman responds with her own story about disenchantment, but Hairstar dismisses it and orders her to remove her shirt and hold butter under her chin as he is called away to deal with Hoover and Featherstone.
Never mind.
Yeah, that was really good. As he goes to kill Hoover, the gun jams on him, and Featherstone unjams it and takes just long enough doing so to convince Hairstar to let them have another crack at Jesse and his people with Brad. Tulip is as despondent as ever and walks into the bathroom and doesn't even notice the loose tile where Jesse is keeping the Saints' weapons. She exits to find all the dead Grail SWAT team and Jesse ordering cops to work for him. They can't get any fingerprints or IDs on the Grail people, so Jesse sets up a perimeter for a future attack. So that date.
Awesome.
I'm just baffled as to what was going to happen in that situation.
I mean, listen, we've all had first dates just like that. And
yeah, I've had the butter under my chin.
I know. I took you to dinner.
Yeah, no, that was pretty.
The best part was his utter disgust at her story.
Yeah,
that was so funny.
Yeah,
he's offended that she would waste his time.
He's like,
with
they laugh all the time. What are you talking about? Even Hairstar knows how kids work.
Sure.
Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah. And she was the daughter of the governor.
Yes,
I believe.
Yeah.
That was interesting because I wonder, like, I mean, the Grail's reach must be so intense that the governor is like, okay, you are straight up payola to this maniac. Like, you just do whatever he tells you to and don't question it or even look uncomfortable.
The fact that she's even receptive to like take her shirt
with no
off in front of
hesitation,
him with no hesitation,
and stick butter under your chin.
Yeah, that's fair. But I was just kind of thinking of it as like like in the sense of royalty, like you're gonna marry this person because it is good for our family kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of what I got out of it. But you're right, she doesn't hesitate at all.
She also said something in the beginning. She was like, "Oh, you got the whole restaurant closed down." It's like, if you're the governor's daughter, maybe you have that kind of pull too.
Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe New Orleans. I don't know much about New Orleans, so
yeah, New Orleans the food's it's pretty. Yeah, I don't know that anybody gets special treatment in New Orleans, but maybe.
Yeah.
If you're gonna nail the casting of one character, Hairstar's a great choice.
Oh yeah.
And I'm glad they nailed him and Cassidy.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody else is very, very good, but they're not like
Spot
perfect
on.
translations
Yeah.
necessarily. They may be different interpretations that are very satisfying, but holy shit, is he so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The scene with him and Featherstone and Hoover.
Yeah, the comic book Cassidy would berate him really bad, but this was a good
Comic book star.
comic book star.
Yeah.
But this is a good alternative because he's physically like, it's like in the way he's like holding the gun too. He's just like, it's not working. Okay, like I'll try again.
I have to find another one.
Yeah.
It's a good observation.
Uh-huh.
Now, was something funny about that because I was like, is it a fake gun? Does he know it's fake? Like, it was something, the way he was looking at it, just like, again, annoyed. Like, he won't be bothered to fix it.
I almost thought Featherstone might have jammed it ahead of time, but it's not like we get any context or anything.
Oh, the tarp. Yeah, the whole tarp thing was so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
leave the top out.
We'll be waiting. Yeah, I love that they just know that's what's coming. And like, is it on the way there or when they're sitting out, they're waiting for him? And
they're waiting for him in the office with the tarp out.
And Hoover's like, I love you.
I love you.
And she's yeah, because in the books, when Hairstar is introduced, he's already working alongside them. Like they're not
subordinate.
Well, I mean, they are his subordinates,
yeah.
but like he already knows them,
Mm-hmm.
and he knows what they're capable of, and more largely what they're not capable of. So I do like that we're getting to see the moment where Hairstar's like maybe these two balance each other out somehow. Because I think comic Hairstar also, he would berate them, like you said. I don't know if he'd go to execute them right away. He'd probably be like, why waste more cannon fodder that I can just throw at a problem?
Yeah.
He just would probably not be thinking about it.
Yeah.
But his immediate like desire to just blow them both away is really funny and really dark, obviously. But I do think Featherstone is really crafty with her, like you said in your recap here. Her usage of time it seemed pretty quick to me, but she knew that she can do this and explain how they can be helpful, and then if he still wants to shoot them, he can.
And I feel like part of her, like I don't think she did that to save Hoover. She did it to get all of that explanation out, and if Hoover died, she would have been like, "Oh well, but maybe I'll still get a crack at it."
Sure.
Is the read that I get off?
She's going to prove
this
herself
Featherstone.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you guys think Brad was?
I had an idea of who Brad was. I thought, obviously, I thought it was a person.
Yeah.
But I had an idea that maybe it's somebody that they call upon for certain things.
Special situations.
Yeah, there is someone that's related to that in the comic.
Okay.
Different guy. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't think so.
I won't say more
Yeah,
than that.
you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
You can just text me.
Yeah.
Or write it on your note.
there you go. Right in a little notepad.
Unless, I don't know. We'll talk about that later. No, I didn't really know, though. I figured it was something new.
I'm not. I was hoping that they had somehow roped Brad Pitt to come on the show.
Oh, my God.
And just like Seth Rogen called him up and was like, "Hey, I want you to do this one thing." And like maybe they call Brad Pitt in to like charm people and get into a situation.
Or like Bradley Cooper.
Or Bradley, like some famous Brad.
That would have been really funny.
Yeah,
but maybe a little too close to reality.
Or what if it was the oldest son from Home Improvement?
No.
I take it back. That's who I thought it was. Which one was that?
His name in the show was Brad, but I can't remember.
Was it Zachary Ty Bryan? Or was he the youngest one? That was Jonathan.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas was the middle one.
Yeah. Whatever.
I don't know.
This is not the
Anyway,
Home Improvement
doesn't
podcast,
matter.
but we could
Yeah.
totally do that. Actually, one year I floated the idea to Alex that he and I should dress as Tim Taylor and Al Borland for Halloween, and it would have been really good.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It'd still be really
Alex
good.
has the perfect Al beard.
Yeah, I do call it the L Borland sometimes.
Yeah, as you should.
But yeah.
No, I didn't really have a real clear guess on who Brad was going to be. I was excited as hell to find out, though. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, they're bringing in something nasty. Cool.
Yeah.
I thought all the fake out Brads were Brad, for sure.
And then let's see, Tulip being despondent after waking up, obviously, not immediately angry because, obviously she realized what happened to her as like later on in the episode. But, what'd you think of her foot tapping that tile where he hid the? Like, I thought she was gonna find it. I thought she was gonna open it up and like grab them and be like completely.
Yeah, I mean, if she finds them, I don't know what'll happen. I
Yeah.
don't know if she can even wield them. I don't know
Yeah.
if a person can carry that because we know the bullet, how it impacts our physical stuff. But I mean, if she takes that gun to the Hurt Locker, you ain't getting up from that. I mean, if she can even use it. But I don't really know. I think that maybe the loop on this particular saint problem will not be closed until she deals with it
Yeah.
herself. I kind of feel like she might find the guns and kind of ask, what are these doing here?
I thought he was gone because
Yeah,
that's what.
yeah.
I
Jesse,
thought the guns would go, why do you still have them?
Yeah.
And maybe, excuse me, maybe if she finds the guns and talks to Jesse about it, she might basically demand, like, take me to where he's at. And, like, she may need, like, a face your fears
Some
type
kind
thing.
of closure.
Yeah, exactly. To kind of snap out of her, like, PTSD that she's got
Catatonic,
going on.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think I'm pretty confident she will find them this season.
Yeah.
And whatever kind of trouble that's going to cause for Jesse, I'm sure
Yeah.
we'll see.
I feel like he did put like the there was like a rug over it when he originally put him down there. It's like clearly not the best hiding.
Yeah,
spot.
they're bad at hiding things from each other.
Yeah.
She's got like the little stash of the money all up in the air conditioning, and
Yep.
he just puts guns near the toilet in the loosest tile in
Yep.
New Orleans.
Any other thoughts on this act? This is also where the police are, working for Jesse.
That the cops working for Jesse, I really didn't mind. I was like, I get it. It makes sense. It's a smart thing to do. Like get the authorities on your side and use what you have.
Yeah.
I got it. I was like, okay, I'm down.
Yeah.
It may have been a little blunt at times, but
Sledgehammery.
yeah. And even the scene at the end of the episode where he says you can go, I kind of expected them all to just like to see them walking around with like their pants like wet and like they literally
They never moved. They
right,
didn't
exactly.
eat,
They didn't eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't slept.
I thought about
They've all
that.
just been relieving themselves in their pants, like because that's what would happen.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
In comic Preacher, they wouldn't stop to take pee breaks.
Yeah.
Unless he told them, "You work for me now. Take a pee break every 15 minutes."
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah. Any other thoughts for Act 2?
Lance,
I'm good.
All right.
I love your hairstyle impression, Lance. Please keep.
Yeah, it's
keep
very
doing it.
good.
sure.
Both of you have very good.
Yeah.
Lance's is better. That's good.
Act 3, Jesse prepares for the Grail with a full police perimeter while the Grail preps Brad and prostitutes for Hairstar. Hairstar takes time aside from excuse me, not prostitutes, professionals. Hairstar takes time aside from reading up on prison architecture to peruse Jesse's file. Cassidy is healing up from the earlier fight with the help of Denis, who is over the moon about being a vampire. When he accidentally burns his arm, Cassidy warns him that he needs to be more careful and that he should only be drinking blood when he needs to heal. Jesse checks in with Cassidy to see how he is and if he can prepare for another fight with the Grail, but Cassidy warns he's not the one they should worry about. After retelling a tale about Tulip healing an earache with a fight, he thinks she needs to fight the Grail in order to shake her existential funk. She reluctantly agrees despite being angry with Jesse about him using the word on her. All she needs is a gun. So there's a lot here. Hairstar perusing the file. So there's a few different things here. There's one later on as well in the final act that we'll get to. But I saw things like a picture of an orphanage of some kind or a large building with several windows.
Oh, yeah.
necessarily know what that was. Lance is pointing towards Nick knowingly.
I know what that is.
It's my orphanage. No, yeah, we know, and we are. I don't know if I can speak for you, but I'm dying.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just get there already.
Yeah.
God, the sound effect. Like, they just keep playing that shit over and over. We didn't talk about that. We don't need to, but
Yeah.
that was one of my few notes on this episode. It was like,
Yeah, and Mike wrote in and said to rewatch that scene very closely and listen to things, but I didn't want to do that because I don't necessarily want. I'm still kind of blissfully unaware. I know there's something there, but
yeah, no, just let it go for now. But honestly, you've heard the key sound that keeps playing, and
yeah,
I was like,
and I still can't recognize what it is,
That's-
even
that's-
though you're
that's
like
awesome.
you know what it is.
yeah,
but,
you do, but you don't. It's great. I'm glad, but let's go.
Yeah. There was Jesse's driver's license. This is a Texas driver's license with a July 30th, 1984 birth date, which I thought was just interesting to know.
Okay.
Several different newspaper articles. There was mention of a detective Raymond Weller. Does that mean anything to you guys? Was the person working on the case of Jesse's father's death, I believe.
Oh.
I don't
It's
think
kind of
so.
okay.
No.
I didn't know if it was just like a little because I was pausing and reading.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw
no.
that there were two headlines that were the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Jesse's arrest record was in there. He's born in Laredo and driving a tan 1978 Ford Duster. Picked up at the rest stop near mile marker 113 and arrested for assault and disorderly conduct.
Sounds about right.
Another news article that was preacher claims he will call down God, which is clearly from the Anvil newspaper. Shadow Point Memorial Hospital visit. Shadow Point, even any kind of Easter egg? Like I was expecting some of these to be Easter eggy, but
Some of them are.
yeah.
At least one.
God, that
Said
sounds
patient
familiar.
cannot move his arm. His leg has a large gash, was what I was able to read on like the condition. And then Jefferson High School conduct report in the lunchroom in February of 1998 was another one that I saw as well. So just a bunch of cool little things in there that I figured
cool.
I would call attention to.
That is cool.
Yeah, very nice.
But yeah, we get a little bit more of the Cassidy Denis dynamic here after knowing that he turned into a vampire and kind of seeing Denis dealing with it. We get some more English from Denis. He thanks Cassidy.
It's so sad. It was so sad. Something about that whole relationship just bums me out.
Oh yeah.
I mean, everything about it bums me out, but that's when he calls him Papa. I think that I get
Yeah.
really sad.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cassidy was selling it pretty well, I felt, with like, don't drink so fast now,
Yeah.
you know, like very, very fatherly.
Yeah, very fatherly and also like absolutely like I think Nick is calling it when Denis gonna like snap at the wrong moment or go take things too far and Cassidy's gonna realize that he doesn't have the temperament. Like I think we're getting those early inklings of like he will not be a vampire that will be in control of his faculties. So Jesse does ask Cassidy, he's like, why didn't you talk to me about that? And Cassidy says, well, would you have thought it was a good idea? And then Jesse kind of responds, well, of course. But it's like I don't take that at face value 1 minute. Like I don't think Jesse would have Jesse's reaction to Cassidy as a vampire in season 1, I think alone kind of tells me that there's no way that he would be okay with the propagation of vampires in any way. Like,
Yeah.
That's right. That's true.
so I like that exchange to me was a little weird, but allowed Cassidy to snipe at Jesse a little bit more of like the, you know, just to kind of be a dick towards him, I guess. And then the Tulip situation, we've already talked about this quite a bit, so I don't know that we need to say a whole lot more with it. But even the idea that Jesse kind of comes to her and is like, I think you need a fight to heal. And then kind of is like he sees how mad she is about the word situation, that I think like it's weird because he goes, oh, maybe you should put your feet up in a hotel. Like it didn't seem like like that situation could easily be played off as like reverse psychology of like, oh, maybe you can't handle this kind of thing. But he seems to play it very straight, and then she's like, well, no, I'm going to do this fight. Like
the reverse psychology thing's interesting because I don't know if I should say too much about how Jesse treats Tulip in the comic.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, let's err on the side of caution.
But
he generally wants to keep her out of harm's way.
Yeah.
Even if she can handle herself, he's usually like, why don't you sit this one out?
Mm-hmm.
Me and Cass got it.
Okay.
Because I got the word and he's a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
But Jen, and she's always like, hell no.
Well, but I didn't. That's the thing, is that like I feel like it could have, like if that scene was performed differently, it could have played out that way. But it's like he almost legitimately seems like he's like, maybe you shouldn't be at this one, and then she says, no, I want to be here. I just need a gun. So
yeah,
maybe that's just a way of coaxing her. Like it's like a motivational speech, maybe.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of neutrality in his performance during scenes opposite her that is frustrating.
Yeah.
Because I can't figure out what he genuinely wants.
Yeah.
Which maybe is okay. As a viewer, I don't think you necessarily have to be in the know of all the characters' thoughts and decisions, but I mean, it makes you more invested if you understand what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, when you're reading the book, you're almost reading it from Jesse's perspective, much of it. So you kind of know what's going on in his head.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So maybe I'm feeling just a little
maybe it's hard
alienated.
to not know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts in Act 3? All right. Act 4, the Grail finalizes professionals for Hairstar and Brad as well. Tulip pays a visit to Featherstone and asks to borrow the gun, which she willingly hands over, knowing that Brad can't be stopped by a gun. The cleaner finally stops by to clean up Denis' apartment. Jesse checks in with the perimeter as well as Tulip and Cassidy when Denis decides to turn on his record player and dance to Edith Piaf's Non Je ne regrette rien, which is the song from Inception, much to Jesse's dismay. A large masked man starts terrorizing the police on the street, which, coupled with Denis' music, spooks Jesse and Tulip. Tulip shoots the cleaner because she thought he had a gun, but he didn't. The man terrorizing the police turns out to be a random drunk, but Jesse is still convinced that the Grail will strike tonight. Cassidy throws him some shade since Tulip is clearly not well, and Featherstone laughs off the events from her security booth as Brad, the battle-ready, remote-operated aerial drone, flies by overhead.
Is it BRRAAD?
There's so many R's.
Well, I guess it would technically be BRROAD, but I think there's hyphens in there that hide some of the...
Okay.
Yeah.
That would just be really funny if it went by so quickly and I didn't bother to read it. I just got the gist of it.
Yeah.
It would have been really funny if it was like a series of R's and A's. So it's just like Brad.
That would be amazing. This is kind of the point where Tulip seems extremely out of it.
Yeah, asking prior to this, asking, give me a gun, but then like pointing at the ceiling and being weird.
Yeah,
totally meant that she wasn't ready.
Yeah. But like it's not like I don't know. She seems. Maybe that's the point. Is that like I guess I take Tulip as being pretty unflappable in these kind of situations. And maybe the fact that she seems extremely off is the point here. But Jesse doesn't really react to it as much as I think he should. However, Cassidy is still kind of like, oh yeah, the Grail's still coming. That's a great thing for Tulip. Tulip's going to be excited about that.
I think the show is doing a very poor job of portraying what sleep deprivation does to a person.
Yeah.
I was actually just reading something not too long ago about when you're sleep deprived by X amount of hours over your normal schedule, like what it does to your brain.
Yeah.
And people who are, I don't remember the exact figure, so I'm hesitant to try to take a stab at it, but it was within like a reasonable amount of sleep deprivation that like a college student or somebody might endure. But they said your brain functions as though you were at like the legal limit of inebriance.
Yeah.
And like, X amount of hours beyond that something low, like 6 hours or 4 hours or something beyond that, and you're like a drunk person.
Yeah.
No way you're in your reaction time and your cognitive process, and just how without getting, a nice solid, we'll say 7-ish hours of sleep a night.
Yeah.
Obviously that routine is important for people, but without getting like regular sleep, you just don't, your brain functions as though you are impaired.
Yeah.
And it's something that we don't place enough emphasis on, like as a society.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all this, it's part of the modern, I think, just like culture is the idea that you sleep less, you do more, and you just drink coffee to make up for it.
Yeah.
But you actually function less effectively with less sleep regularly.
Yeah.
Whereas like you'd be better off doing less work for 2 hours, sleeping 2 more hours, and you'll get the same amount of work done because you will be thinking more clearly. Yeah. So if Tulip really is like, let's take a conservative guess and say for the last 5 days or so she hasn't slept. I mean, she's a lunatic at this point, I think. And
I guess that makes sense.
There's a reason that sleep deprivation is a time tested and I'd assume very effective form of torture, because your mind will start to like unravel. So if that's the kind of timeline we're playing with here, and that she really hasn't slept, and she's been getting shot in those off hours, then yeah, I think I kind of see what's going on here, and I wish this show was maybe painting that a little bit better.
Yeah. I think some of that consistency between her and Jesse is not helping keeping that through line of like, and him putting her to sleep. Like, he put her to sleep with the word, but it clearly didn't like fix things. She still has that sleep deficit, which I think is accurate to real life. Like,
oh yeah, you wouldn't be able to sleep one night and
have it all work okay.
Yeah.
So that's fair. Maybe I'm not giving it enough credit, or not.
No,
like,
I think the show's just not conveying the fact that she's. I mean, we're not spending any time with her.
Yeah.
Not sleeping. So, I mean, if she's literally there all night, we haven't seen even just one scene of her like staggering back to the apartment would help tie it together with like the sun coming up and her like clearly looking shitty. Like, she doesn't even look that bad as she should.
Yeah.
But whatever. We also didn't see Jesse wake her up. Like,
you didn't say wake up. She woke up on her own.
Which
right?
is weird, because that wouldn't happen.
No.
Unless it just happened off camera. He like woke her up.
And then
Or, like,
waited
in
for
her ear,
her
like,
to
wake
like
up.
rub her eyes.
Wake up in 2 hours. Or something like that.
Yeah, scheduled it.
Told her to wake up and then ran out to go deal with the police team.
Could be. We also skipped the part where she borrowed the gun.
That's just at the beginning of this. I apologize.
Oh,
so
okay.
I did kind of jump over that a little bit, but
Yeah. I need your gun.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't tell you what it's for. Did she say something like that?
Yeah.
She's like, I need it.
Yeah, I can't tell you what it's for, but I need it. She's like, well, she goes and picks up the gun, and they give you that little bit of hesitation of her maybe thinking like, maybe I should just shoot her right now.
Yeah, the way she was holding it.
Yeah, but then obviously she hands it to her with it pointed towards herself. So she's kind of like, okay, well, I'm just going to give it to you.
Yeah.
But then Featherstone's like, let me know if you need any help. Like, I thought that was pretty good.
Sure.
Yeah, I thought that comic Tulip would be way more suspicious of this woman than TV Tulip, and I'm going to chalk it up to the lack of sleep.
Yeah.
But I feel like her hackles would be a lot more raised. Like, who is this woman?
Well, yeah, and as we talked last week, it seemed like she was maybe onto it a little bit. So maybe that's just not quite coming to a head yet.
Yeah. Oh, well. I thought it was a good scene, though, and I liked that Hoover was like, why'd you give her a gun?
Yeah.
Shut up, Hoover.
Big Brad. Big fake Brad.
Big fake Brad was really scary.
With the mask.
Yeah. Was he wearing an Obama mask?
Maybe, yeah. I think you might be right.
That was so weird. That was so creepy.
Yeah.
All these details I have questions about, I don't bother to rewind and like answer them for myself. I'm just like, I'll ask Alex later.
Yeah, I didn't realize what kind of mask it was, but that seems that would make sense.
That was so creepy and so cool. But then once he got up to the car, once we got a look at him, and I was like, he's a big, giant, shirtless man. I was like, bullets will stop Brad.
Yeah.
If that's Brad.
Yeah.
I don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah, that can't be Brad. That's true.
So then the Acme cleaning company cleaner.
Yeah, Acme. I thought that was like, come on, guys. You thought of other brands,
I saw that, and I was like, okay, so this guy's a red herring. Because there's no way that the Acme cleaning guy would be the real... But he was so like shady looking.
Yeah.
You may as well have cast like Michael Shannon in that role, because he just had this look about him where I was like, ew. That guy's grimy.
Yeah. Yeah,
that was good.
pretty
But both of them for a beat, I was like, for Big Brad, I thought was Brad for way longer because just the way it happened was so nasty and weird.
Yeah.
I was scared when he walked out and then there was a gunshot. I thought something. I didn't think it was what it was.
Yeah, you thought something happened on the
Yeah.
street with the cops?
Yeah.
No, I thought in the apartment.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You thought
Which
maybe
would have devastated me.
cleaner guy shot somebody.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that was...
Yeah, the kind of little surprises that they pulled that are so obvious now that I was like, of course it wasn't that. Why did I think it was?
Yeah.
But the big wrestler Brad had me going for a second. I was like, yeah, that's pretty funny.
Denis dancing in his apartment. I'm kind of enjoying his gleeful joy.
I like it. I
Yeah.
like it because it's like he's born again.
Yeah.
It's all for vampires. I mean, some interpretations or whatever of vampires is about all pleasure,
Yeah.
having a good time and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So I like that he's dancing around and really just taking it all in, drinking it all in, as they would say.
And the man, like, it's a totally different portrayal of Denis, obviously. Like, it is an absolute character change, and seeing him perform that, I think, has been entertaining.
It's very effective
Yeah.
watching him turn into like this. It's kind of adolescent in
The
a lot of ways.
smiling, like, yeah. Being the son that he never got to be, maybe.
Yeah, and I think, basically as Lance said, yeah, and that's part of what makes me think there's a larger story here with the vampires. I think that they're generally portrayed as being societal and very hedonistic. Like, it's all just pure pleasure, as you said all the time.
Yeah.
And there was some work of fiction, I don't remember what it was. It could have been any vampire movie, excluding Twilight, that explained what it feels like to be a vampire is just like, I can't remember the phrase, but there was some phrase I thought about, like, it feels like something is rushing through your veins, or it was something like that, about how you always feel just like primed up and just like the best you've ever felt in your life. And so I'm sure for Denis, part of the joy is not just the prospect of living forever and being healthy, but he probably just, the physical change he feels going from a dying old man to like a prime of your life vampire, so to speak, is probably so overwhelming. It's probably like just like a constant drug high. Like, he just can't come down from it right now, and he just feels so good.
Yeah.
He just wants to blast the pee off and get rowdy.
Yeah, he obviously feels better than he has probably
Ever.
since before that cancer or
Since
whatever
he was 25,
he had. Yeah.
probably. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Shit,
So.
I felt better when I was 25 than I do now. No, it is fun to watch, but at the same time, it stressed me out the same way Jesse is stressed out, where I was like, oh man, just turn that shit down.
It was a very frenetic.
It was well done.
Yeah, absolutely. That whole sequence, it certainly put you. It made you uncomfortable in the same way that they were, for sure. Any other thoughts on Act 4? All right, Act 5. Hoover worries about being close to Brad's strike point, but Featherstone dismisses it by saying Brad is very precise, but it would be a noble cause to die for anyway. Hairstar opens up an Angelville pamphlet as 3 professionals pay him a visit. As they have their way with him, he realizes that Jesse Custer is his missing puzzle piece. After they finish, Brad fires a missile towards Jesse, but Hairstar calls it off, causing Featherstone to redirect it. And it turns out that she chose actor, singer, talk show host Harry Connick Jr.'s house. A week later, Jesse uses the word to tell the cops to go home and forget about what they'd been doing. He heads to the bar to drink some Ratwater whiskey, which I really want a bottle of, by the way. And we hear that the terrorists have taken credit for the drone strike on Harry Connick Jr.'s house. Hairstar walks in and introduces himself to Jesse, saying he may have a way to help Jesse in his quest to find God. Featherstone being like, it would be a noble cause if we died for this, and Hoover's like, yeah, totally. And then his like, oh my God, you're an insane woman look on his face was fantastic. I
Hoover's
enjoyed
the
that
real
quite a
MVP.
bit. Yeah. The Angelville pamphlet has several titles in it, saying tarot, curses, fortune-telling, voodoo, and soul salvation. So I couldn't read any of the actual text in it. It's a little bit too low quality for me to see, but clearly something's going on in Angelville, and it's important to people in the story. Any thoughts? Nothing. You don't need to have any thoughts on that.
Oh, plenty, but
Just can't wait.
we'll hold them.
Yeah. So this is the professionals visiting Hairstar.
Sure.
I know that you had a few thoughts on it, but just kind of we see them having their way with Hairstar, and he has a very kind of he's having a very non-reaction to it all.
He's very nonplussed by the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's not like a. In hearing people talk about these kinds of traumatic experiences, obviously, like there's the idea that your brain shuts off as a defense mechanism, and that's not what I get out of Hairstar's like boredom.
I think
in the situation,
I think it's a bit of a been there, done that.
Yeah,
for him, and which is a deviation from the comic. In the show, I think they just play it off more as like he has explored every corner of sex that there is to have been explored, and it's just more of an inconvenience. Almost like he realizes, oh, the no means yes. I'm not going to get out of this. I may as well just get it over with.
Yeah,
and that's kind of how I thought it came across in the show. The Jesse being the puzzle piece thing is interesting at this moment of kind of discovery for Hairstar. Because in the book, I think it's pretty safe to say that Hairstar is obsessed with Jesse.
Okay.
He's obsessed with finding him. And I think that we're kind of at that place now. Like, that's why earlier in this episode, when he's kind of dismissive of it, he's like, who cares?
Yeah.
About his superpower. I was like, oh, come on. That's not, he should be really into it. And now I think something has clicked. And I'm not sure what it was, though. Like, it's just...
Yeah, exactly, because he's just kind of looking at the name on the file. He's not looking at anything in the file that gives him that eureka moment, I think.
Right.
So I agree. It was a little unclear to me as to why that would be the conclusion that he arrives at that point in time. But
yeah, but I'm glad that's on the tracks now, because he pretty much devotes insane resources to trying to find Jesse and pin him down in the comics to the point of hilarity. Like I said, a lot of it is really inept because Jesse does not go down easily.
It's interesting because I feel like this kind of arc could maybe have, like the way that you're describing it, it's like we got that season 1, which is like issue 0 of the comic in a way, and like we're still kind of backfilling for Hairstar because he gets introduced in season 2.
Yeah,
like maybe they just wanted to take that time to build that motivation and that connection for Hairstar,
right?
Even if they didn't necessarily do it with like the most clear.
Yeah, it was strange timing.
Yeah,
but there was something else too that earlier I forgot to mention, that Featherstone really quickly offers herself up to Star. To be the object of his rape fantasy.
Yeah.
And I think that's good because she's definitely into him in the book.
Okay.
And I think in the show she is as well already, but I think it's also simultaneously her like devotion to the Grail.
Yeah,
it's really
devotion to the Grail and potentially like a almost like a power hungry kind of do what it takes to climb to the top.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Kind of situation.
Get closer to Star.
Yeah.
It's true. I thought that was a good beat though.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that.
She gets into explicit detail about what she should be doing. It's just like, no.
Yeah. Harry Connick Jr. joke. Yeah. I enjoyed it. Thumbs up.
I was kind of like, oh man.
I was
why Harry?
As soon as we get to the point where they need to redirect the missile, I was like, okay, what is this joke going to be?
What's the target?
Who is it, or what is it?
Yeah.
I was like, who's in New Orleans? I was like, I couldn't come up with anything. So the fact that it's just like Harry Connick Jr., I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Talk show host.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's just funny that terrorists claim credit for it too.
Yeah, it's almost like the Grail doesn't need to work that hard to cover themselves up because there's other people around willing to take credit for their work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Also, so the explosion that levels Harry Connick Jr.'s house. Apparently, I was like,
cloud.
I was like, yeah, that would have killed you, Featherstone and Hoover for sure. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Liquefied.
Yep, for sure.
So the meeting of the two people, Star and
Well,
Jesse.
real quick before we
Yeah,
get
go
to
ahead.
that, there was another instance earlier in this episode when Hairstar is reading his prison architecture stuff. He gets this cat pop up, and he X's it out and ends up kind of accidentally turning on the surveillance feed of Jesse, I believe, which leads him to open up the file. But then Featherstone deals with the same pop up when trying to redirect the missile. Part of me feels like there's more there, but I don't know what it could possibly be. Like almost like maybe there's somebody fucking with the Grail, but there's literally those two moments to go off of, and it's probably me just reading into them, being like, wouldn't it be funny if they had like a pop up?
That's kind of what my takeaway.
Yeah,
They probably
which
just
I totally get that, but just like there's something about it to me that makes me want to read into it more. But
I loved it when it popped up for Hairstar.
do you like cats?
Do you like
Like cats? No. I was like, he's gonna say no for sure. Yeah, just keeps just keeps hitting it. It was so good.
Yeah.
So, Jesse meeting Hairstar.
So good time for them to be introduced, because like I think Jesse is clearly at a low point. You know?
Yeah, he's got no leads at this point.
Yeah, and you can even say Star's kind of at a turning point.
Yeah,
especially for what happens to him, and he's probably got some ideas about what he can do with Jesse.
So in the books, is the idea of them quote unquote cooperating? Does that play out in any measure?
No.
So
Definitely not.
so we never see this idea of Hairstar maybe enticing Jesse into.
And maybe Jesse's gonna go along with it.
Because he wants something. He needs to get back on that trail of finding God again.
Yeah.
I can't even think of what Hairstar's plan is, though. Like I know in the book what Hairstar's goal is. I don't see it in the show yet, though.
Yeah.
So, and also, I can't remember where we landed on this. Does the Grail know that God's not around right now?
I think they have to because
they ran the
video,
audition, right.
Yeah, the audition.
Yeah.
Mark Herlich's audition tape was
R.I.P. baby.
So here's what I will say to that is knowing a slight amount of comic book detail, or at least from what you guys have said and from what some of the emails have said, I still don't see what Hairstar's deviation from the Grail is yet. With what you were just saying, like you know what Hairstar's ultimate motivation, what he wants to do and what he's trying to do is. In terms of what I've seen in the show, I don't know that yet. I'm not
right. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, we can't really say.
Yeah,
I mean, I think if you
I like my theorization, my postulation that I've had in the past was that Hairstar, being the kind of person who seems like he would want to rule the world, having the word would be a great tool to do that with. That's just my that's a logical. Those dots are there and they're easily connected.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say
it's a bingo.
It's all it's all there. You just need to put it together. And you did. I mean, I think that you are correct. I
can see where that makes sense, but the idea that he's kind of just getting there, obviously, like
right. That's what I'm saying. I know it, but I don't see it there yet, and I wonder what he has to bring to Jesse that he thinks, because it seems like he's going to try to coerce him into something or manipulate him into helping him by sitting down with him in a bar and saying, "I came alone."
Because I guess
I don't get that though. Like in the book, he wouldn't do that.
See, but here's the thing: is that because he was so dismissive of the idea of Genesis in the first place, like, oh, that's not a power, that kind of thing. Like maybe he doesn't understand how to extract Genesis at this point. Mm-hmm. Maybe he doesn't know how to harness that power for himself except to befriend Jesse. Like maybe he's going to try and make Jesse part of the Grail or something of that sort.
Yeah, that's true.
So I
think that Star, as we saw from his his qualifying rounds to be in the Grail, it would be the date scenario. We would sit down and say, tell me where it is, or I kill your whole family. Like that's what he would do to Jesse. He would he would go into the apartment, grab Tulip and Cassidy, round them up, put guns to their heads.
I'm going to kill them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why that's the Hair Star approach.
So he's
either that or storm the bar with like 200 soldiers, and Jesse would find his way out of it. It would be great.
Well, we'll see how it plays out in the next episode. I presume. Yeah.
We better.
So.
Yeah, it was a good ending, and I'm intrigued to see how that's going to play out and where it's going to go.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. How's Jesse going to react to this German guy? Just like, what'd you say?
Did he what? So he sits down and Jesse turns to him, and does he not even say anything? Does Hair Star just talk to him?
Jesse looks at him and says, "That's a nice suit," because he notices it's the Grail.
Okay, that's right. He puts two and two together, so he knows right away that this is someone from the Grail.
And then Star is like, "It was made by a person who was skillful and that doesn't
a blind
exist."
Hungarian seamstress. Yeah.
So yeah.
Right. So
Jesse must know that he's got something to do with the Grail.
For some reason, I had this image in my head of Star sitting down and just staring at him, and Jesse looking at him like,
yes.
Who the hell is this guy with his eye scar?
Yeah.
No, that's true. I forgot about the heat. So he ID'd him, so he knows.
Yeah.
And he knows he's... Yeah, because then he looks around the room, and that's when Star has to tell him he came alone.
He's alone, yeah. Yep. All in all, I wouldn't say that I found this episode disappointing. Like, I do think...
No, not at all.
I guess there was something that I did want to kind of... one last point that I wanted to discuss from an email from Mike. He said, the complaints about the plot not advancing. This is the problem with serialized drama format, since you can't have action, or you will burn out too quickly. Too much show plot will frustrate viewers. In parentheses, he puts the farm episodes of The Walking Dead. And he says, I agree they need to be more on point with the main plot. However, it's the side plots that make the story great. As I said before, the gang in the books fall ass backwards into problems where they go to A, but B happens instead and takes them 12 issues to resolve. For a TV example, going to New Orleans where they just happen to run into Victor. So the idea that we are getting these more character moment oriented episodes as opposed to things that are really driving the plot forward. Like this episode, I know that Joseph said that he was disappointed in this episode because he feels like we're retreading a lot of old plot points. But like I was wondering if we could maybe talk about that a little bit, because to me, it's not that I'm able to get into good character development. And obviously, I'm very interested when plot develops as well. But even in something like this episode, where I think we pretty clearly voiced that the Jesse Tulip stuff is not hitting the right chord. And then on top of that, it's mostly just, the Grail fails a bunch of times. And then finally, like, the only real development we get is Hair Star and Jesse meet. Like, I don't know. Like, it's almost as bad to me as when they like did an episode of Friends when there was just a bunch of clips from a previous episode.
Which they did like every season.
Yeah, they did it once a season.
Yeah.
Like, Nicole's been watching those, and I'm almost like, you can skip this one because it doesn't matter.
Always. I always skip that one.
Oh.
So, like, those bottle episodes, it, like, not that this was one, but I feel like there's a better balance to strike, you know?
Yeah, I think that we can safely say nobody at this table is opposed to character-driven episodes. I think we even praised, was it last week or the week prior, where it was like a heavy character episode.
That was last week, yeah.
And it was fantastic. Was it last week? I said it was probably my favorite of the season.
Yeah, because I was ready. Like, I was thinking you maybe didn't like it a lot, and I personally was like, I don't know how much I like that, but after we discussed it, I was like, I feel a lot better about this episode now that I realize what was going on.
Right. Yeah, because it was good stuff. And, I mean, the Victor subplot is an interesting example because ultimately, what did that do for the show or for anybody? Like, did we need it?
Maybe it tried to shed some stuff about Jesse where he's like, he kept on calling him an asshole. And, you know, I mean, I could have figured that out myself. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it didn't even serve to I guess the flashbacks. Nick said he's like, I didn't even necessarily need to know what happened, but after Dallas, but before the series started between Tulip and Jesse. But it was really good.
I did like it, and I think the flashbacks were well done, and I liked the scenes of Jesse and Tulip in the apartment and him just kind of sleepwalking.
Yeah.
Similar to how she's doing now, actually, which is kind of interesting. But
that didn't, none of that involved Victor. It was how she got to Victor, but
it just took forever.
Yeah.
I would almost rather... I'm not opposed to flashbacks. I'm not a anti-flashback person.
Yeah.
Firefly.
Yeah.
Right on.
You know what I'm talking about?
The best episode of the show.
Yeah.
Out of Gas.
Yes.
All flashbacks predominantly, and they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Listen, this is the first 3 years of Lost and even beyond. Pretty much, there's more flashback than real time.
Yeah.
And it all works because it's just well done for the first, most of the first season. But anyway, I know that a lot of people, a lot of writers and screenwriters and teachers and stuff will be quick to say that flashbacks are crutches. VO is a crutch. Phone calls are Lance is nodding. He knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that these things are all crutches, and they can be, but in the hands of good writers, these things can all enhance. Look how damn interested I am in the phone call with Seamus.
Yeah.
And it's an open-ended phone call, but oh boy, does it have me intrigued. And I think that we could have just seen some of those flashbacks running alongside why Jesse and Tulip aren't on the same plane right now, and I probably would have liked it better than all the Victor stuff. Because the Victor stuff, it's kind of like season 1 in a way where everything that happened in Anvil mattered, but Anvil's gone. And there's everyone's like, well, and they just wiped their hands and walked away that's done. And that's kind of the way the Victor thing feels now. Victor's dead.
Well, Victor's not. Oh, yeah, he is dead. He got killed by the Saint.
Dead. Yeah, exactly. And all that did was steer the Saint closer to them, which I guess he had to get there anyway. But he could have just showed up. I mean, that's what he does.
Yeah.
So I don't think we've ever said anything like, "Oh, action, 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 please." As much as we love the action, I think I'm all in for character stuff, and I totally recognize that they do fall into these situations in the comics where they take them off the beaten path. That's actually probably what most of the book is them just trying to find God and stumbling around and getting into weird situations. But they don't take 12 issues to resolve. A lot of them are much more brief than that. And I think that they can be condensed down even further for television. These could be 2-episode things that happen.
Or even the Monster of the Week format is pretty well known, and the idea that they would be it's possible to be telling these little side stories in a more concise way that also informs the characters a little bit. So
it's not bad. Well, none of the Victor stuff was bad. I just think it could have been better. There may have been better stuff, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it is what it is.
It's hard for it to it feels like treading water because they don't want to get to God yet. It feels like they are purposefully putting it off, which I get it. Obviously things need to happen on the road in the story, but
right.
The idea that it's there to just be a stumbling block rather than to also really give us more context about the characters, I don't know. The Victor thing is a little baffling, and maybe we need to revisit that at the end of the season.
Perhaps on a second viewing, it'll be more rewarding. But I do remember thinking there's better stuff we can be doing with these characters, and a ton of the good stuff from Tulip and Jesse is flashback stuff.
Yeah,
a ton of what makes Jesse compelling is his past. And if we're going where I think we're going and where the show seems to be going, season 3 is going to be the bomb. It's going to be so good. But I think I'm a little bit spoiled because of book knowledge, but season 2 has at times felt like a big drag. And while it has been a good show, for sure, a great show even, sometimes I think we could be doing better. But I feel like we've gotten off the...
Yeah,
gotten off the track.
You know, I just wanted to kind of briefly touch on that because,
Yeah.
like you said what I wanted to say with the situation, which is that we're not asking for action every episode.
Mm-hmm.
We're not asking for God to be at the end of this season. I think. I don't know. I don't actually.
He doesn't have to be if it doesn't fit.
Yeah,
but it
Right.
feels like we could get there in some instance, or we need. Because I feel like almost every episode of our show, I've been saying, like, we need to get back on track to finding God. And I know that's what Jesse's been after. Like, in every episode, he's talking about how he needs to find God. But the show needs to help him out a little here. And, like,
and
actually...
it sounds like Harry Starr might be here to do that.
Right. And
Needs
episode,
to be someone in
9,
charge.
10?
Yeah.
So almost the end of the season?
We're at 9.
I guess. And I get the biggest restriction is probably just logistically in real life, dollars and cents, and shooting in New Orleans or, you know, spending a whole season in one place makes sense.
Yeah.
Because flying your crew all over the world or all over the nation to shoot, like, our first half of the season is in New Orleans and the next half is in Chicago or whatever. Yeah, that would be crazy. But it's doable.
Yeah.
AMC.
Well, even so, like,
Yeah.
people have gotten very good at shooting in certain cities for other cities.
Yeah.
So the idea that maybe they could pick something that would allow them to stretch it and play it a little bit, and then they could do, obviously, establishing shots and other things to
Mhm.
make it, to fake it,
Mm-hmm.
obviously it presents a challenge, but I think it's one that people are well up to.
And the situation with Denis seems like it's going to be a big, giant bomb that blows up in everybody's face. And
Mhm.
maybe part of the reason we have been loitering around in New Orleans for so long is because it's been leading up to that. And if so, that's cool because they've been sneaking it under my nose here and I haven't suspected it because I've been kind of like, what the hell are we doing here? But
Yeah.
if the Denis thing turns into a big deal, which it kind of feels like it might,
I feel like it might. Yeah.
then maybe it'll make more sense why we've been here for so long. We've been getting to know this situation and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see.
Any final thoughts, Lance?
No, that's I agree wholeheartedly that we are kind of delaying just because, you know, they want to stretch it out to 13 episodes or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last few are probably going to be crazy, though.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We'll see.
This was episode 9, right?
This is 9,
Mhm.
so we got 4 more after this.
All right.
Yeah. There's just still a lot of TV.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Some of these episodes, they fly by.
Yeah.
And
So we
some-
didn't visit Hell again this episode.
Yeah. No hell.
Yeah.
But in the last episode, was there any?
See, that's another thing. Man, I'm
no.
glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
The hell stuff. It's good, but at the same time, like if the end game is that Arseface gets out of hell and he comes after Jesse because he's angry, they could have just done that.
Mhm.
And like did what episode that was a flashback.
That could have happened in the premiere of this season. Like Eugene makes it out of hell and he's fucking pissed. I would have been like, okay.
Mhm.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And okay, I'm in. Yeah, or not even. You can just show him in hell and like reliving that one scene and be like, "Oh, that's terrible," and then not see him again until episode 9 when he gets out or something like later down the road.
Yeah.
And his performance is so good that I'm glad we got to see some of it. I'm glad we got to see him before he was arse-faced.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And,
Mhm.
like it's all good stuff, but I just it's a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we will see what next week brings.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to look back at the end of the season and go, boy, was I wrong.
We'll see. We kind of did that a little bit last season, so it's not out of the question.
True.
But,
Did that this episode. But Denis, we might be on a week-to-week basis here.
yeah.
Huh?
Once again, you can find more episodes of our podcast on g2tpodcast.com. That's the letter G, number 2, letter T podcast.com. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play Music. We are G2T Podcast on Twitter, and you can email us at g2tpodcast@gmail.com to tell us what you think of our podcast and share your thoughts on AMC's Preacher so we can read them on our show. Send us corrections, observations, or anything regarding Preacher or our podcast. The Midwest Podcast Network has other shows about video games, horror movies, and HBO's Westworld. Find out more about these shows as well as how to support the network at MidwestPodcastNetwork.com. Our theme music is Our theme music is the song All In by The Red Thread and is being used under a non-commercial Creative Commons license. That's all for this episode of Gone to Texas. We can't wait to see what next week's episode of Preacher brings, but until then, go forth and speak the good word.